The nice thing about real estate, one of the nicest things about real estate is anybody can manage any way they want. I mean, within the confines of being legal. You can keep your rents under market if you want, because you have you own it free and clear and you can afford to do so, or you like the people and
Right.
whatever.
Or stable, loyal tenant base, whatever.
That's where the opportunity can be, because it's not as refined or perfected as, say, a company like Apple or something, where there's top quality people running this thing, lots of eyes on it. It could be one person in a $20 million apartment deal who's mismanaging it, and that can be an opportunity.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. I have Wes Hill with me today, and honestly, I think you guys are in for a treat. And here's why you're in for a treat, in my opinion. Now you can see Wes's face, so he doesn't know what I'm going to say. I'm just telling you. I think you're in for a treat because when I saw Wes come and present at my FIBI Pasadena meeting, I liked his story because it was just a regular guy, not to insult you, Wes, just a regular guy who picked his path and stuck with it. His diligence, his hard work, his integrity, and his dedication is the thing that has defined his success. And so I want you guys to listen to his story, what it is he's an expert in, yes, today, but also what is it that he used to break through to his financial freedom using the vehicle of real estate. So let me read his bio first. And let me show it to you. I'm going to share my screen. So you can see Wes Hill Multi-Family Asset Advisors is his company that he is associated with at this point. Wes began his property management career while attending the University of San Diego in the late 1980s. He mowed lawns, painted apartments, and handled the bookkeeping and management of several properties for a private investor during his 4 years of college. Basic stuff, right, guys? After receiving his BA from the University of San Diego in 1992, Wes moved to Chico, California, and began working for a local property management company. He founded his own real estate firm, Hill's Property, in 2000. In 1994, yes, Wes and his wife purchased their first investment property, a 4-unit apartment building near California State University, Chico. They purchased several properties each year, and in the early 2000s began exchanging those smaller properties into larger assets with partners in Washington, Oregon, and Utah, which is part of, I think, the brilliance of his strategy, guys. So hopefully he'll touch on that. Wes is a certified property manager and a California real estate broker. During his career, he's been involved in the brokerage for over 1,500 apartment units and over 200 million of real estate transactions, over $200 million of real estate transactions. Guys, I haven't done that. I haven't hit that number. I brought you an expert. Wes holds ownership positions in over 1,000 apartment units in California, Oregon, Utah, and Washington, totaling over 100 million in value of assets he is part of. Wes, welcome to the show.
Good to see you, Christine. A pleasure to be with you. I look forward to our conversation.
I personally have been looking forward to it as well. Wes, when he presented at my FIBI meeting, I was teasing him and said, you should come be on my podcast. And he kind of looked down at the floor and went, well, if you want it, I will. And so here we are. I said, yes, I want it. He is not currently looking for investors right now. He is just here to literally share his experience and his knowledge and his expertise with us. So Wes, really good to have you here.
Good to see you again. Good to be with you.
So tell us a little bit about how, we heard it in the bio, right? So in college, you're working in real estate, kind of doing the handyman, get it done property management thing. So tell us about that transition and how that grew for you.
Well, I was a B and C student in high school, so I went to community college my first 2 years. I couldn't have gotten into University of San Diego out of college, so I had to do the community college route. And I, through a family friend, met this couple who owned maybe 7 or 8 rental properties and just started literally doing lawn mowing and maintenance for them, even though I wasn't particularly handy. They kind of guided me through it and stayed with them through the entire time in San Diego, and then went to University of San Diego and graduated. But kind of got the bug and really enjoyed it. Got my license my last semester of college, and then I moved to Chico, California, which is north of Sacramento, and worked for a property management company through the 90s till 2000. And I got married in 94, and my wife, I was a school teacher, Spanish teacher, and we just decided we'd live on half our income. We were both making about $30,000 a year. combined income of 60,000 a year, and we didn't want to have kids for a handful of years, so we allocated about 25 or 30,000 a year towards buying small properties. And at that time, in our town, which is a lot more affordable than obviously Southern California, we could buy fourplexes and get seller carry and just bought duplexes, fourplexes, 6 units, that kind of thing, until we had kids, and then her income went down, my income was going up, so it worked out. But then I worked for a property management company for those 7 years, and then 2000 I started my own property management company in Chico and started brokering more deals and putting more and more people together to build a portfolio of the 1,500 units were referenced. So over the last 20 years, it's been more on the investing side, property management. I've since sold the property management company, and all we do is look for investments that are strictly multifamily, no other commercial. In mostly our favorite is the Salt Lake City area, but those are sub 4 cap, really hard to find any opportunity. We've done a lot of deals in Eugene, Oregon, and other parts of Oregon, Washington. So we just put clients, family, friends, people we know and like, who either have 1031 exchanges or cash, and we 5, 6, 7 of us are buying 100 unit plus deals in those areas. So that's kind of 25 years in a nutshell.
Wow, that was good. You did it. You bottom lined it. Like, how did I do that? And it's go ahead. What were you saying?
Children and a lot of other things in the mix, of course, but we'll focus on.
I'm sure there's actually a lot in the mix, because real estate is not a simple, straightforward field. It doesn't always go exactly the way you planned. And, that's part of our conversation here today. But when you finally got into multifamily, so why don't we talk a little bit about the asset classes of multifamily and your multifamily asset advisors company? So why did you stick with multifamily in general as a choice? Because after investing in real estate for as many years as you have, it's kind of a choice to choose to stay with a particular asset class. You can choose to go to other asset classes, especially as your net worth grows. Like, hey, if your net worth grows, you've got enough now, you should do triple nets, right? So why'd you stay?
I remember reading an article. I don't know if it was in the LA Times or San Francisco Chronicle, but basically this is probably 20 years ago. And I remember the line that stood out to me was, where are we going to house 50 million people? It was 30 million at the time. I think we're at 40. And they were projecting 50 by probably now, but I don't remember the exact. And I just remember feeling like housing, and affordable housing in particular, is going to be a need for a long, long, long time. And of course, that was before the internet and retail and what's happening with Amazon effect and retail. So all I knew is apartments. But I think it's a pretty basic concept that and especially now with the market so hot, it's going to be even harder for people to buy homes. They're going to be renting longer. Rents are going up, so it's even harder for people to rent. I mean, there's a lot of new factors that are just more recent. But I think just the need for affordable housing is and will be great for many, many decades.
Yeah, it's going to
construction. You can get into all the other stuff, the inflation that's going up, and just labor costs and material costs and all that. But just the basic need is there and will be. And I felt very strongly about that, as I did 25 years ago or so when we started.
So what is your favorite type of multifamily asset? Because there are a lot of different asset classes that you can choose to participate in. I did see asset classes in Hispanic neighborhoods. That was my particular subgroup when I had direct ownership of properties, which I don't really have. I only have 3 properties right now. So I don't really have a lot. As direct ownership, I have syndication deals and other assets and other things inside of my portfolio. But as far as direct, that was my favorite up until recently. Now I'm doing short-term rentals. So what's your favorite asset classes inside of multifamily? What do you like about it? What do you need to be aware of about it if you were just entering that field now?
Our preference is B class property, which I would define, and everybody's got their own definition of. I would call it 20 to 30-year-old buildings in decent but not bad but not elite neighborhoods, meeting middle income tenant incomes. And so our favorite, and where we've done well, was if we can find an owner who's developed the property, who's too cheap or too short-sighted to hire property management, likes to manage it him or herself,
Right.
Need a boatload of money because they developed it, they owned it 20 years. As my business partner Tim, who you've met, said, we like the profile of the guy who's so cheap he'll go collect his own quarters at a 200-unit apartment building in the laundry room because he's worried somebody's going to steal from it. That person often will not maximize rents, not maximize other income. We've taken over buildings where they weren't charging you water, sewer, garbage, dog, late fees, pet fees, parking, garage, washer and dryer fees, and we can add all that other income to a building. Now, if you can add, say it's a 100-unit building, average rents are 1,000, and you could add 20,000 a month or 10,000 a month of other income that isn't even contemplated by that seller. And we may have paid premium for that building, but there's that kind of other income, plus often the rents are under market. That's where we've done well, and that's a value add opportunity without spending a lot of money. That's just improving the management and taking advantage of what is out there.
You probably know this math better than I do, but I know that not only do you get the value of adding in the extra $10,000 a month of cash flow, but you actually just increased the value of the building,
Sure.
right, by the cap rate, right? So I think it's $10,000 time 0.05% cap rate gives you the increased value, or is it the other way around?
I would annualize it and then divide it by whatever the market cap rate is. So, in that case, $120,000 divided by, 0.05, it's a 5 cap, and that gives you the value.
That gives you the increased value in the price of the building. Exactly. Thank you for doing the math. I appreciate it, because I think I want people to understand why value adds aren't important just on the cash flow itself, the capacity to cover your mortgage, the capacity to bring more cash home, but you've actually just made the building more valuable through a forced appreciation. And you put in the work without necessarily, you didn't even list rehabbing units, which is the ones that people are the most familiar with.
Sure. I mean, that's the obvious easiest lift is when it's management or, just being not afraid to ask it. And the nice thing about multifamily is you can test the market. You have a vacancy, you turn it over, you improve it, you ask, oh, we're a little aggressive, let's come down. You can just fine tune where that sweet spot is, because you want some vacancy, because you want to know that you're, achieving those gross potential best possible income. And yet you don't want to be, full or too high of a vacancy.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's one thing. Unlike, say, a triple net deal where you have a single tenant building and you're just, kind of going out to the market, where it may sit there for 2 years before you rent it.
Yes.
But with multifamily, you can fine tune it quite a bit. We do that. So, I mean, for example, we bought a building in Eugene in February. It's 112 units. B class, but in A condition. It was original owner. If you can imagine, 1971 construction phase 1, 79 construction phase 2, original family, the 70-year-old woman who we bought it from, her dad had built it. So this thing was clean and well managed. Well, they probably owned it free and clear, and they were getting, let's just say, around $850 for 1 bedrooms, and the market's $1,100. Well, guess what? We've just, not to the current tenants, but to the new people, we've pushed that rent up, and we're getting a turnover, that higher rent pop. That's just, they were, the nice thing about real estate, one of the nicest things about real estate is anybody can manage any way they want. I mean, within the confines of being legal. You can keep your rents under market if you want, because you have you own it free and clear and you can afford to do so, or you like the people and,
right.
Whatever.
Or stable, loyal tenant base, whatever. Mm-hmm.
That's where the opportunity can be, because it's not as refined or perfected as, say, a company like Apple or something, where there's, top quality people running this thing, lots of eyes on it. It could be one person in a $20 million apartment deal who's mismanaging it, and that can be an opportunity. And this wasn't mismanaged, but the rent, there was quite a bit of rent. We think about 20% upside in the rents, and we're already starting to see that since February on turnover. So, that's what we look for. To get back to your original question, is those kind of opportunities. They're hard to find today, for sure.
They're very hard to find. The multi-unit market's got incredibly competitive. When I bought years ago, I bought a 7 cap in Van Nuys. Wasn't that hard. There kind of were a lot of 7 caps in Van Nuys at the time, right? I just kind of found a building that had some plumbing problems. So I was able to find a 7 cap and re-plumb half the building, and I had a workable building, right? Now it's 7 cap. My goodness, it's hard to find a 7 cap even in tertiary markets these days.
Not even.
So what are some of the problems that people would run into if they're new to this? Like, what would you recommend? Any tips or any thoughts on what people would run into that they should be aware of?
I think for starter investors, I really believe that it's better to get a group of people together who you know and trust and can get along with, and you've maybe had some experience together, and buy something a bit bigger than just a fourplex or a duplex or a house. economies of scale really kicks up. And if you can't get to, well, I'll finish my sentence. Economies of scale really improves when you get to 80 plus units. You can have an on-site maintenance person, a leasing person, a manager, but not everybody has $5 or $6 million to buy a $20 million deal on their first deal. So, but I think still bigger is still better as far as efficiency. So the gentleman you had at your event, Paul Moore, wrote the book, The Perfect Investment. And one of
Mhm.
his concepts in that book was bigger. So, you don't want to just hook up with random people who you don't, know, and make sure you have a relationship with of sorts before you go buy a building together. But if you can get something a little bit bigger and let it be professionally managed by a management company. I mean, a lot of times people just will stop managing or investing because they're doing it all themselves and they just don't like the management side of things. They're just sick of getting calls and then dealing with problems when they could, hire that out. So we always hire third party management. Our company does charge a fee to our partners to oversee the management company, but we're not dealing with everyday problems and staff changes and maintenance issues, and we're interacting about those bigger picture things. But if you can get property management in place, I come from that background, so I'm a bit biased there, but it's from an investor perspective to not deal with tenants and toilets yourself directly and have somebody else who's doing it efficiently in a portfolio of management. That's what I would encourage. So two things: larger, if possible, partners who you know and like and trust, and property management, because I think you just get burned out on doing it yourself if you're in there painting apartments every turnover.
No, I've noticed with my clients that people who seem to have about 20 single families, like they start busting through at that point where it's like, I don't really want to keep having 20 single families. And I don't, and even if I have a property management company, they're a little like, I don't want to continue to have 20 single families. It's like, well, that's because you're ripe for a multifamily. And that is when you want to take that step up to be able to have professionalized management. Because I mean, I've always done buildings that were 30 to 50 units, kind of in that range. So it's kind of a mom and pop units. And so therefore I hire property management companies that are not on site, but I usually have an on-site manager, somebody who's officially the on-site manager. Usually somebody like you, a college kid or a young couple, right?
I paid my dues.
Exactly. So somebody like that, right? And they're on site. I had the best, just a complete side story. So I had the best young couple who managed one of my buildings, and I was having a gang problem. And to be accurate, I had a different on-site property manager, and then I was having this gang problem with the building next door. And so I brought in, via the property management suggestion, this young couple. And the gentleman of the couple, the girl was small and petite, very clean and tidy, and she did the cleaning on the building. But the gentleman of the couple was about 6'4" and had a big, long beard, think ZZ Top type beard. Right, seriously. And he worked for Caltrans. So he was actually physically just a very big, buff guy. And as soon as he started walking out saying, hey, you kids, because they were effectively high school kids from next door, why are you hanging out on this property? It kind of went away. And he was never mean. He was never gruff. I never got a complaint. We never had anything legal that was a problem once he showed up. It was just a nice mix of on-site property management making a difference in being able to assess the property and being able to keep it safe,
Sure.
right? So
Man,
go ahead.
so much a part of the success or failure of this business. Absolutely. Multifamily, absolutely. Management is everything.
Management is everything. So you did a great job at the beginning going through all the value adds that as an investor, your mind, when you look at a building, you're looking at it through an investor's perspective, which is, I want to value add this, I want to value add that, I want to value add this. But the property management company sometimes feels a little bit to me like they're stuck. They have loyalty to the tenants and their vendors, but they have loyalty to you, the owner. And they're stuck between these two groups of people. So how is it that you vet and or manage your property management companies so that you feel like you get the performance you're looking for? Because they don't always think like investors.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been fortunate. We use a Seattle-based management company that handles our Washington, Oregon properties, and we've never felt like there's a question about their loyalty, who they work for ultimately is the owner. So that we haven't had that conflict. But I understand what you're saying as far as getting too close to the tenants and such. They, we like to be their favorite client. We bonus them even beyond the contract. There's actually a bonus structure in the contract if they exceed net operating income on annual, or actually paid quarterly. And then at Christmas, we'll give our property managers $4,000 or $5,000 and just say thank you. You did an amazing job. You beat NOI budget for the year. So we want them to like us. And I guess part of my business partner, Tim, also managed properties for years before as well. So we have that perspective of being rewarded. I didn't get bonuses when I was fee managing for him. I mean,
Exactly.
a gift basket or something at Christmas or some chocolate or something. But
Hey,
we always try to take care of them as best we can because they are on the ground. They're dealing with, especially in this environment with COVID and all the rule changes and eviction moratoriums, and literally it seems like the law changes by the month in this current environment of when you have to give notice to people, how much if they've signed a distress tenant, agreement or whatever it is. We can't evict people till 1st of July now. It's been it will be over a year in Washington, Oregon, and probably I think California. So we just try to support them as best we can. They are on the ground doing a great job, and so we want to, encourage them to continue on and not give up.
they work incredibly hard. That's been my experience as well. When I've ever, like, my biggest learning curve was when I had a problem building and I started working with the property management company literally on like every 2 or 3 day basis and trying to turn a building around financially as well as the quality of tenants. I was like, oh my gosh, the amount of what I'm paying them is peanuts. Like I was trying to do a little like math on how much are they making per hour. And I'm like, I think they're making like $12 to $15 an hour. And they're clearly having to pay somebody $12. And like, how is the owner of the property management company taking money home when they're effectively paying everything to their employees, right? Is it where my head went when I looked at the amount of work they did? So what are the most important traits you look for in your property management company? And what do you find most satisfying or important?
I think having an understanding of what the valuation add when you can push revenue. If they don't have an idea that what a cap rate is or what a gross rent multiplier is, or if the first example I gave where there's all the other income of 20,000 a month and what that does to a valuation, not like we're out there trying to flip property or selling them very quickly if we're long-term holders, but having a sophisticated enough property management company to understand that when you raise the rent even $10 on a 100-unit property, that has tremendous impact to the bottom line. Also, just their willingness to think creatively on how to do marketing. I mean, some of the stuff they come up with is pretty ingenious that I've never heard of on the social media side and the tenant events and reaching out to other properties and that sort of thing. So marketing is certainly key. Having just quality on-site management, we kind of touched on that already. We're willing to pay better than most just to have somebody there for several years. I mean, one of our frustrations is when a manager is there for only a year or 6 months, and then they move up to the next property because they get an opportunity within the company or a different company. So, paying them above market wages so that they want to stay 2, 3, 4 years, have the continuity, understanding of the idiosyncrasies of the property. There's a lot of intellectual property, if that's the right terminology, that is a value to that building and that owner to have that staff there a long time. So I think those would be the big things that come to mind initially.
So it's perfect. Thank you for describing that. One of the, it's funny because in and among that list, one of my sticklers is what accounting system they use. I know that's probably silly for me, but again, I'm not dealing with on-site property management, so I'm dealing with more an off-site management company and an on-site person versus a full company. But so I care what software they use for their accounting system.
Sure.
Because if they're not keeping their accounting clear, then I can't solve the problems that are going on in the building. It becomes the lack of transparency becomes difficult to solve.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the questions that occurs to me is now the current structure of your company is primarily it's you and you have a partner.
Yes, our holding company is mainly an asset management company that just basically oversees the management of the property management that manages the property for the properties that we have ownership in. And we have a few clients that we don't have ownership in. They've hired, we brokered the deal, we put them into a deal, for example, in Salt Lake City, and they don't want to work with a property management company because they are very busy. They hire us for a fee to travel there quarterly, to review the monthly profit and loss statements, to solve problems, to prepare the tax, the P&Ls and such for tax preparation, to manage the disbursements, so there's always cash reserves, but enough to disperse. So that's kind of the general nature of the asset management of the properties. But yeah, basically our structure is we look for people who maybe have 1031 money, maybe they have a 6 unit or 12 unit that they've owned free and clear, and they got a 500 to $1 million, and they want to join us. This last deal that I referenced earlier, the 112 units in Oregon, there was 6 of us, or maybe 7, and we formed 7 individual LLCs. I brought in, I had 2 small exchanges, and I put in 600,000 with 2 exchanges and 400,000 of cash and my commission. And the 7 of us, 7 LLCs purchased this property. Everybody's approximately between 9 and 16%. There's a tenants in common agreement that the attorney prepares to kind of define the relationship between the LLCs. And then we are the asset management company. We charge 1.5% of the collected income. So if we collected $100,000 that month, we get a $1,500 fee, not a significant fee, but we have several units, and it helps us pay a top flight asset management person who works for us. So we are pretty selective. When you go into partnership, it's like kind of going into bed together. I mean, you're in this thing for years to come, and as you well know, real estate's not very liquid, and you may be in this, things go back down spiral for many, many, many years. So we're very careful. We don't just throw people together who have, just because they have money, we think they're obnoxious, we're not going to work with them. We want to work with people who really get us, and have some experience in the business, have some equity, at least 400,000 or 500,000 and up, and we'll put them together and buy hopefully a good value add opportunity. And for long-term players, and it's about cash flow. Yes, appreciation is great, but it's about the cash flow.
Now you've really developed your wealth by doing this long, slow-term game and gains, and being able to own a percentage of a building. When you were sharing at the FIBI Pasadena meeting, you specifically were like, I have 12%, 17%, something, like it was a whole series of like, you never said I have to own it myself alone. That was never your stance, and that was never how you grew your worth.
Yeah, I mean, what I referenced earlier is I'd rather have bigger and less ownership than more ownership and less properties. And because of things that have appreciated so greatly, that's worked out well. I'd rather have 10% of I did a creative deal with a client of mine whose wife inherited about $2 million, about $2 million. And so we bought a $6 million deal, and I didn't put any money in. I left my fee, and he wouldn't have qualified. He was middle income. He would not have qualified for a $4 million loan. We paid 6, and he put it down 2. We borrowed 4. But Tim and I did qualify, so we got 10% of the deal each.
Right.
And it's gone up. It's doubled, and not quite doubled, but it's gone up significantly in the 6 or 7 years that we owned it. So I own 10% of a 112. That's also a 112 unit deal that I have no equity in. And that's worth $500,000, and I get 4, 6, 7, 8, 10,000 a year on that. So we've done some creative things like that where we can benefit the client who maybe not doesn't have multifamily background, and help them qualify and get in the deal that way.
And you've actually been doing that for a while. I mean, it's easier probably now. I'm thinking about my listeners, right? And I have some listeners that'll be newer to real estate. And it's not like, gee, Wes can do that because he's been at it for so long. Well, Wes can do it because he's been at it for so long, but you've actually been doing that almost from the beginning.
I'll tell you a story or an example of a creative deal that I did 20 years ago when I was 32.
Tell the story, because I want people to understand, like, no, this isn't just, hey, Wes has got it covered, right?
Being in the business helps, but it is a model that somebody else can do. Basically, I approached a client who he's a pretty high net worth individual. He had a 1031 exchange. He wanted to buy something, and I found him actually, before I found him the deal, I said, if I find you the deal, could I participate in some of the upside? He said, great, make me a proposal. So I said, okay. And I found this apartment deal, 32 units in Chico, California. This is the year 2000, so 22 years ago. And I said, I think, and he paid $1.5 million for it. I think it's going to be worth $2 million in 3 years. And we had to refinance. It was a short term. I don't remember exactly the loan terms. We had to refinance fairly quickly. So sure enough, I was going to push rents, improve the value, raise for $2 million. So it went from 1.5 to 2. And my agreement was I get 25% of the upside. So I made 25% of 500,000, which ended up being about 14% of the overall ownership. And so when we refinanced 3 years later, I went in as 14% owner, and I'm getting now $2,200 a month, cash flow on zero investment, And that started off as like 600 or 700 20 years ago. But I added value, and now that property, of course, is gone. That capped out what I added in value. I got paid at that point, but I'm
Right.
managing it or overseeing it for him. But basically a win-win. Find me something. If you don't have the equity, go find somebody who does. Help, scour the market and find something, and then say, I want to participate in this only when I prove myself. I didn't get paid. I think I don't remember if I got a commission on that one. Maybe I did up front. I don't remember. But the more important value add was that 14% of a 32 unit building that I get 25,000 a year on today.
Right.
So that's an example of something somebody can do, even at a smaller scale. Go find a duplex or a fourplex and say, with work for somebody who has the equity to make the purchase and participate. And you don't even have to take ownership. You just have to have a trust relationship with that person, have a written agreement so they don't screw you out of it when the value goes up. So it's clear. But in this case, we had a strong personal relationship, so I didn't worry about that. We did write.
Wasn't too worried about it.
Yeah.
But still, I think it's important that you throw in because I keep, telling people, all you can sue on is the legal agreement. So make sure you put it down. And to highlight something you said earlier, which is this is a little like a marriage. And so you really want to take the time to have an agreement before you start getting into the deal, before you both sign on the bottom line, to work out all those details while you're still getting along really well. Before the complexities of the property, sometimes put some stress on the relationship. And, you guys have to then work out what that means and how that's going to go. Like, think about it while you're still friends. Think about expectations. Words are very meaningful, right? Hold on. People hold different meanings around words. Like, yeah, I'm going to property manage it. Oh, cool. Okay, great. And the other person goes, that's wonderful. And then as soon as they go, well, so I'm going to hire a property management company. They go, wait a minute. You said you were going to, oh no, I'm going to oversee the property manager was what I meant when I said that. I'll take care of the property management part. It's like, but that's not what I thought. And now the numbers in the building are different. And now I'm frustrated. Right. So you want to have that clarity of duties and clarity of how to get in and clarity of how to get out. And I was in a building for 5 years that I kind of at like year 2.5, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to be done with this. I'm ready. But I signed an agreement for 5 years. So I stayed for 5 years or until we sell. And eventually I think we sold in year 4. Right. But at least we had an agreement and we understood. We didn't have to have any fights about it, right? We just kept having our meetings and we worked the building forward.
And another thing he taught me was to have examples in your agreement. So you say, here's the legalese, so to speak. As an example, the property is worth 1.5 million. If it goes to 5 or 2 million, that is an increase of $500,000. And our agreement is 25%. 25% times 500 is 125. That represents whatever percentage of the deal. Literally write out in kind of, 5th grader language,
right,
what this might look like for better or for worse. And that's something that's, because like you said, words have different meanings to different people, but examples kind of clarify that usually. And that even in a lawyerish type of document, you could do examples.
Exactly. So we've talked a little bit about your expertise. We've talked a little bit about, your field and what are some things that people could look for or learn about. Let's talk a little bit about you. So you've been an investor for a long period of time. And anybody who's been an investor for a while, I've discovered we all end up having a story or 2 or 5 of what it means to have deals go wrong, or at least be truly challenged, right? Whether it's like you lose money on a deal, you end up getting forced to sell something, you get, something that's just a pain that took forever to work out, but maybe you still own it. What's one of your worst real estate stories? Because that seems to be what real estate requires of us, is the capacity to manage.
Yeah. Well, probably my biggest failure was a deal we did in 2008. It was spring of 08, before fall of 08. It was 156 units in Salem, Oregon, and a longtime friend of my business partner, and I had known him for a while. He had the 1031 money, and he put in $3 million, and I pro forma'd it out as saying, okay, here's the rents, here's where I think they'll be. I think the value will be, plus, whatever the number was. And we will pay you a guaranteed return of, I think it was 12%.
Yes.
Locked ourselves in on a guaranteed return, and that was a mistake. And then 08 happened, which, and generally speaking, multifamily did very well in 08, and 09, 010, 11. But
it was the first to recover, but it still got hit. I know, because I owned a couple multi-units in that, and I happened to have watched the value go down, but it was the first to recover. It was
really I mean, just a very macro level, net operating income didn't diminish that much. Values did diminish. So, but we had a 3-year deal. Guess what? So 8, now we have to sell an 11. And he had triple net stuff, single tenant stuff that was killing him. And he held us to that agreement. It was producing about a 6% return. Our overall 3-year hold was going to be about 12% return, including sell. And we couldn't do it. And we had to sell a really nice downtown in our city 30 unit that we had quite a bit of equity in to raise $600,000, which is what we were short when he said, year 3 is up. I want to sell this, and we went out. We had to sell a nice building. The cool part of that story, however, is we brought in another partner at that time, and things were already starting to look up, but he wanted his money. And that thing, we paid 8.5 for it. We had to pay him shortage of 6, and we ended up selling it for like 12.5, 3 years later. And those partners that we brought in made a lot of money on it. But actually, the best part of that story is he really appreciated us, and we were one of the few people who, in his world and partners, that stood up and did the right thing and experienced some pain by selling something that was a great smaller property to make him whole. And he said, I'm loyal to you guys. We haven't done any deals with him since, but we're friends with still today, and he always appreciates that we suffered a little bit with him to make him whole. And unfortunately, he didn't cut us any slack as far as the 12% return. I said, would you take 10? And he said, no. So that's one of our pains. So I guess the moral of the story is don't box yourself in on timelines, because had he stayed in that deal, he would have certainly got his full 12 and more, because it went to I think we sold it for 13 2 or 3 years later, just the way the market took off in 11, 12, 13.
That's right.
13. And he would have done great, and we would have come out whole, but he had some pressure on time. So I guess long story short is don't box yourself in on guaranteed returns or certain timelines. Maybe it's a loan maturity. Don't, make sure you have plenty of time, because time often does in our business heal a lot of wounds. Markets change, and they've changed kind of slowly, but they can change for, and oftentimes in multifamily for the better. But if you're locked in, you could get yourself upside down pretty easily.
That's a really great example. And I want to pull a piece out of that beyond the lesson, which is, don't lock yourself in on timelines, was that you guys didn't sell it on the open market. You guys effectively liquidated them out. You brought in other partners so that you kept control over the deal, which gave you the opportunity to earn back the $600,000 that you guys had invested in that property, right? And so instead of just, I guess I could say, just giving it up, you guys actually were very creative about finding a solution to cash out that partner and bring in new ones.
Yeah, it worked out for the new partners. Then we sold that building and bought 132 units in Salt Lake City. That's now tripled that cash flow. I mean, I was getting about $2,250 a month, as I recall, for my 12.5%, and I get $7,500 a month now from that same amount of equity from that same deal. Even though I lost the 600,000 or half the 600, time and getting out and getting something better kind of worked itself out.
I have some flip deals I would love to have that level of success with, or had that level of success with. Very nice. I love the story. So you talked about the deal. You talked about how you solved it. You talked about your integrity behind it, right? And you talked about what you learned from it. Why keep that integrity intact? Why is that important? Is it a personal thing? Is it a brand thing? Why you liquidated a perfectly good investment, which I've done myself, and I have my reasons why I've done that. But what was your reason as to why to liquidate a perfectly good investment to make an investor whole? You could have just walked away.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just have some integrity, I guess. I don't want to moralize it or anything, but my parents taught me to do the right thing and be honest and tell the truth and stand up for your mistakes. And that's what I've been trying to do. And in that case, that came at a price, but it worked out. And at the time, when you're making these decisions in real time, we didn't know it was going to work out for our benefit.
That's right. You didn't.
That was the deal it was actually the deal I put together, and my business partner went along with it. He thought it was an okay deal. He wasn't thrilled with it even when we did it. He thought it was a little bit aggressive, and he was right. I was wrong. But you got to sleep at night. You got to look yourself in the mirror. You got to tell your kids and have integrity with what you're teaching them. If you're not doing it yourself, then you're a hypocrite. So I'm trying to live with integrity, the best I know how to. So that and I went skiing with him at Squaw Valley 2-3 months ago, and he with the guy who we made whole. And, he brought it up, I'm not bringing it up. He brought it up and he, said, thank you again. This is now 08 to, 12 years, 13 years
12
later.
years later. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, 08, 09, 07, 08, 09 was just really tough. It was really tough. It was tough for me and a lot of other investors. I know people who were, and two people who were investors at the time, and both of them now no longer invest. They just went, nope, I'm out of here. They took their losses and it took everything they had and they walked away and went back to the job world and said, nope, I'm going to do a job from here on out because that's just a little too rich for my blood. And I don't blame them. I was, I was this close, well, maybe this close myself, right? Just like, but that's what real estate can require of you. So let me ask you then, if real estate is tough and it really does take being able to call on your integrity and walk a very clear path with people and investors, why continue to use real estate for your financial freedom? And what does financial freedom mean to you?
Well, I think I think it's the best tool out there. I mean, I'm not a big stock guy and I don't understand crypto and, there's other ways that people are making a lot of money, of course, but the fact that you can, put down 20 or 30% and borrow 70%, the bank, believe in it enough, they will give you that money. You can't go into, Wells Fargo and ask for $1 million or you're going to put 300 down and want 700,000 on a stock portfolio. The fact that you can use borrowed money at incredible rates, have the opportunity, buy something that potentially has value. And like I said, the inefficiency of many multifamily, especially owner managed deals to add value. Then you add, so you're getting cash flow. Maybe it's modest, 5-6%, but you're adding value. Then you get depreciation. I mean, the amount of depreciation off our income that we're getting is unbelievable. I mean, it's like a secret. Like when I tell my friends who make a lot of W-2 income that we don't pay a lot in taxes or sometimes none, they can't believe it based on the cash flows we're getting. So, right. I mean, it is an amazing tool, and I'm even learning more, or realizing more about just the power of refinancing and moving that equity as opposed to selling and exchanging, because the depreciation, you're not taking that gain forward to the next deal. You're getting 100% of the depreciation by taking money out of this deal, putting it as a down payment on this deal. And in this case, we're doing a deal in North Dakota of all places, 276 units. We're refinancing a building in Eugene, Oregon. And it's double the depreciation by not exchanging and carry that basis forward, but by just, and I mean, I'm doing this a while and I get the concept of, gain carry forward, but to see it in writing and do the math on it and go like, oh my gosh, yes, why, let's not sell this thing. Let's refinance and buy it. Right. There's just so many layers of why this is an amazing, business to be in. And I mean, I think there's some changes in the tax laws and such that are, pretty scary, but I don't think they're going to eliminate them all and make it all go away, because real estate will stop being sold. As far as investment real estate, if they eliminate the 1031, eliminate the gain, carry forward, there's a lot of scary things that they're talking about, but usually it doesn't all come to pass, at least in the same year.
Well, I mean, they have capped the 1031. I mean, that has happened already. The gain on the 1031, how much you can carry forward, has now been capped. So it is that one came to fruition, right? In the split roll, right? Here in California, the split roll, being able to, not being able to carry forward your property tax basis and keeping that set, like, nope, not anymore. Primary residence, yes, but commercial, nope, you don't have that shelter anymore on your property taxes remaining stabilized. So, those things have, in California, those things have already changed. But I agree with you, which is that would be a mistake to take too many of those away, because then you will find that people don't have an incentive to turn buildings over. They'll just hold on to them and let the equity grow and use other loopholes like inheritance, right? I just lost the name.
They're going to take away the inheritance.
Inheritance tax. I mean, it was 11 million. Now they're going to drop it maybe down to 3, right? So they're talking about that, but then it'll go back up again, right? So
hopefully we won't see it in our immediate 20, 30 years we have left, hopefully, right?
I don't think it'll disappear in that time.
Hopefully it'll swing back.
So
but financial question, I mean, to have the flexibility, the answer about financial freedom.
That's what I'm going for. Why? You've broken through to your financial freedom. Tell me that exactly.
I mean, I'm 52, as I get older, the time becomes more important than money. That's easy to say if you don't have money, but when you have some money, time becomes more important. To have, yeah, and tying it into the property management where people are doing the trades that that you don't want to do, or you're not even as good at as they would be to do,
Yeah.
creates freedom or time, freedom being time. I know many people who self-manage. They have, I'm thinking of a local guy who has 500 units and they have their own property management. And I mean, he's probably worth $50 million, but he's working 50 hours a week at age 70. Is that freedom? I mean, I'll take half of that or a third of that and I'll work 10 hours a week, if I was him. I mean, at some point it's just a job, and if you've created a job for yourself that you can't quit because you own it, right? So to have people in place, the asset management, the property management, to create significant income, but then have the time and flexibility to do things. And of course, technology has made it so much easier as far as being able to read documents online and talk like we're talking remotely, 500 miles apart, and all that sort of thing. But it's been an amazing ride to be able to create cash flows, multiple streams of income, from multiple properties, even if I'm only a 10% owner. I mean, I guess I do own a 20 unit that I'm 100% owner of, but the highest percentage of the other stuff is in the maybe 45%. So 10 to 45% ownership of, within the 15 units, 100 units that we talked about.
And so what do you do with this? If your greatest value is time, freedom of your time, what do you do with that that's meaningful to you?
Mm. Well, I could work out more. I need to lose 10 pounds, but
Well, I have to know one thing that you already did today with your time that was meaningful to you. It was right before we started our meeting.
call from a friend whose childhood is difficult, but we all have our personal interests. I mean, I love having a relaxed morning. I get up and read and pray and just have some relaxed time with my daughter, who's our last one at home, and then I go to the gym and come in at 10 and leave at 2 or 3, and check some emails at night, and I'm helping my other son who we helped buy a house. He's doing a fixer upper, so I'm over there helping him and helping him make decisions. So flexibility of time is a lot of is a joy to have, no doubt. I don't have any more major insights for you about what I do with my
No, that's
a typical day.
it's good enough. It speaks to, what is, I mean, I've heard a lot of stories, right, in relationship to people's financial freedom and what it means to them and why they want to fight for it, or what they enjoy now that they've broken through to their financial freedom. And it ranges everything from spending time with my kids to knowing that I'm safe in my retirement, to taking care of my aging parents, to being able to enact my own levels of integrity, because I'm not working for somebody else. I get to choose the integrity of my own life.
Yeah.
So I think there's some very good reasons as to why. And I like your story because I think it illustrates, well, what does financial freedom mean to you? Right. And it meant freedom over your time. It meant freedom to spend time with your family, to be peaceful inside of your being, and to be able to still manage and have something meaningful in your life, like managing your properties. So you get to, for me at least, that's what it means to me. I want to be there to pick up my kid at 3:00 at school. That's meaningful to me. I grew up with my mom who was sometimes a single mom, 3 kids at home. Sometimes I was left at school for 2 or 3 hours till my mom got around to picking me up. So I know it's meaningful.
Did text her and say, hurry up and get your 5 minutes?
Yeah, no, I was one in elementary school, and 2, we didn't have phones that were capable of texting. No, it wasn't. I just remember sitting around a lot waiting for mom to show up. And she wasn't, she was running her own business. It wasn't like she was trying to be mean. She just was a single mom raising 3 kids. This is the way the schedule went, right? And there wasn't aftercare. So, it just is. It just is. So it's meaningful to me to be able to pick up my daughter on time. That's meaningful to the next generation because it's different than what I did. But I still get to love on her just like my mom got to love on me. So it's, you take the good of what you got and you try to make it a little bit better, moving it forward. And that's one of my deep, meaningful things to me that may seem completely unimportant to anybody else. Right?
Absolutely.
So, Wes, thank you so much for your time. If people do want to get a hold of you, and I know that they may or may not be wanting to get a hold of you because you don't really take a lot of outside investors at this time, but I know the name of your company is Multifamily Asset Advisors. How would you suggest they get a hold of you? And is there anything that they should visit your website for?
Well, they certainly can see our properties that we're involved with, a lot of B and a couple A's, but A, B, and C class multifamily in Oregon, Washington, Utah, and maybe a couple in California are on that site. So it's multifamilyassetadvisors.com. Sorry, it's so long, but MAA was taken. Um, so yeah, feel free to go to our site, and there's a link somewhere for my email. You're welcome to reach out to me. I'd be happy to dialogue with you if you want to email, talk, or text. I'd be happy to talk to people who are interested.
Very good. Thank you, Wes, again for the time. I know this was a gift to me because I know that you're not necessarily looking to drum up a lot of business, but I think it's a gift also, hopefully, to my listeners who can understand that it really can just be a college kid who is cleaning, who is, huh?
C student.
A C student, college kid who is cleaning out apartments and doing property management between classes. And you really can, just through dedication, hard work, and making time work for you, you really can get somewhere to where you really do now have your financial freedom.
Great to see you.
Good
Anytime.
to see you, Wes. This is Christina Suter with the Real Estate Breakthrough Show. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and iTunes, as well as on FIBIPasadena.com, which will take you to our YouTube FIBI channel, or ChristinaSuter.com, where you can be able to find my podcast, Roku TV, as well as YouTube, Christina Suter. Thank you so very much, guys.